SJB claims that they have the best team and they always criticize certain measures taken by the government, such as imposing higher taxes. Was there really no other alternative?
There really was no alternative. If the SJB has all these top-notch superior people who can handle an economy so well, why didn't they take the seat? You have to take the driving seat when the country is in crisis. They should have taken it in that case if they had the best, but they didn't because they didn't have the best. And they criticized, but they didn't come out with anything, any solution.
Do you think one of the reasons that opponents criticize, even if you're taking the right decisions, is because they're playing politics?
This is the sad thing about this country. There's a lot of politics involved.
When your country is faced with a severe crisis and people are faced with so many economic hardships, that you leave your politics at the door and you think of what's best for people.
Very happy that we were able to do this for the country, although the country doesn't still think we did something good. This country would have been in tatters. People would have really been suffering if we had not done that recovery.
Welcome everyone, you're watching another episode of Conversations with Alanki. It would be right to say that the guest on my show has dedicated many years of his life working in the UNP, mostly behind the scenes too. Having entered politics in 1999, he has held several ministerial portfolios throughout the years. And in 2022, he was appointed by the former president, Ranil Wickremesinghe, as his chief of staff and senior advisor to the president on national security. And this comes at a crucial point of time when Sri Lanka was at its peak of its economic crisis. So he needs no lengthy introduction, but I hope to have a real conversation with him about what his significant contributions have been towards the betterment of Sri Lanka and also a little bit about him. Welcome.
Thank you, Alanki.
Thank you for being a part of this conversation. So I'm going to get straight to the point. Sri Lanka has a president from the NPP right now, President Andrakumara Dissanayaka. Do you think Sri Lanka is on the right track given that we faced the worst economic crisis since our independence?
We were on the right track. We were following an IMF program which had certain benchmarks we had to reach, as well as we were outside of the program. We were very keen on economic growth. So we brought in some laws and also regulations to speed up growth. And we were also working through the ease of doing business, things like that, because we want Sri Lanka to reach its fullest potential with its economy so that the people benefit from it. We've thought out of the box. Our relations with India will play a huge role in this, our connectivity to India. So it was a comprehensive plan moving forward. We were trying to plan to 2048, but our short term was 2030.
All right. So I've had a conversation with an economist from the World Bank on my show. When I had the conversation, it was actually during President Ranil Wickremesinghe's tenure, where he said that Sri Lanka has had to face tough reforms, but we were on the right track and we were heading towards economic stability and recovery. How was this achieved within a short span of just 2 years?
We had to make some tough decisions. And these tough decisions were also tough upon the people, because if we didn't make those decisions, we wouldn't have come out soon enough, and we would have just prolonged the wound, that it would have festered and festered. So President Wickremesinghe said, let's go through with it. And the team worked hard with him to come through. The IMF backed us, the World Bank and the ADB also backed us. But more than anything, the people of the country stood patiently, even though the current president's party worked very hard to destabilize us, along with the other opposition, the main opposition, which was the SJB. When we took over, it was imperative that we got the entire parliament together. So we invited everybody to work with us. That didn't mean they had to come and take ministerial portfolios, become part of the government. No. But we didn't want them yanking us by the leg, pulling us back, because you're pulling the whole country back. But that's just what happened. From that day go, they just kept pushing hard to destabilize the government, even though it was fairly clear that was the only path available to us. We kept asking them, if you see another path, please do tell us, and we can then consider it. You can weigh the pros and cons. But nobody came up with that path. These are the two very persons who actually backed out during the crisis when they were asked to take the helm. Current President Anura Kumara and opposition leader both. They said, we don't want to take this responsibility. They came out publicly and said, අපි මේ වගකීම බාර ගන්න සූදානම් නැහැ. We are not ready to take this responsibility.
Right. Yes, indeed. I think there were, from what I hear and what is being said on media, I think there were several MPs in the SJB as well who do have a good understanding of economics and who actually felt that it was not the right time to take up the country, given the fact that it was facing a huge crisis. And however, SJB claims that they have the best team and they always criticize certain measures taken by the government, such as imposing higher taxes. But like you said, was there really no other alternative?
There really was no alternative. We were completely bankrupt. Government revenue had fallen where we didn't even have the revenue to pay the government servants' salaries,
right,
the pensions, and the social welfare benefits. We didn't have the money for that. So we were money printing. I mean, the previous government was money printing to pay these. That was how critical it was. If the SJB has all these top-notch, superior people who can handle an economy so well, why didn't they take the seat? You have to take the driving seat when the country is in crisis. They should have taken it in that
right
case if they had the best, but they didn't, because they didn't have the best. And they criticized, but they didn't come out with anything, any solution. No, they only criticized. They never came up with an alternative solution.
Do you think one of the reasons that opponents criticize, even if you're taking the right decisions, is because they're playing politics?
This is the sad thing about this country. There's a lot of politics involved. There are ways to be in opposition. Now, right now, we see President Anura Kumara looking a little lost in the direction he wants to go. The direction he wanted to go prior to elections is not the direction he seems to be taking now. But usually, Alanki, when a new government comes in, they come in front of the people and they let the people know what their policy is. So you have two ways of doing it. You can come and address the nation, or you can go to Parliament and address Parliament, and you tell the Parliament your policy, and
right,
they are the representatives of the people. In this case, Parliament was dissolved immediately after elections, again politics, because that had an effect on our journey or our path. We ideally should have gone with the Parliament that existed and passed the budget for 2025, which should have helped us to move forward with the IMF program, with the third review, and obtain the third tranche, rather than delay that. Now, by dissolving Parliament immediately, which is done obviously by the President to make sure that he maintains the momentum of his victory, rather than run a few months and become unpopular and lose some seats as a result of that. So again, politics. So politics always gets in the way of running this country for the people.
Would you think the NPP should carry forward the measures taken by President Ranil Wickremesinghe in terms of economic policies and administration? And what will happen if they divert?
So, if they have a better plan, they must present it to the country.
Right.
And then we, the other political parties, the people, we can all see whether it will work. And they have to negotiate it with the IMF, the 21 other countries, and the private creditors, because it is no longer only the IMF. All these countries have agreed to debt restructuring, so we will have to agree with all of them, because they are the ones who have agreed to wait a little longer to get repaid the loans that they're given to us. But the second thing is, whatever that second option, second part, the other path we follow, must provide us a better economy then, and be able to repay these loans as well.
Absolutely.
So we haven't seen their plan. That's why I was saying we don't know what their policy is. Before the election, they said they will change the IMF program.
But they said they don't have a proper parliament. They don't have enough representatives. How do you respond to this?
Well,
Is it necessary to wait until the parliament elections?
when you take over government, you have to have a plan when you're taking over. You
Right.
can't take over government. They said they had a plan.
Yes.
You can't take over government and then say, look, I need parliament as well.
Yes.
And now he's saying he needs 2/3 in parliament. This is the very president who said you should never give anybody a massive majority in parliament, because that's lethal on the country. So he's going back on his words. He said, what has he done? All the promises he gave on the stage, he has now backed off on. The government servant salaries. He said twice he's going to increase it every 6 months. They need to get that they won't wait to be asked. The government will respect their government servants. Now he says, we never said anything about increasing government salaries. We'll do it only if you have the money. Fuel prices, that was one of the big things they went on about. They, in fact, went to the extent of saying the minister was pocketing 150 rupees a litre. If the minister pocketed 150 rupees a litre, that 150 could easily be given to the people now. Or the minister or somebody else is pocketing the 150 now as well. The only relief they gave was 6 rupees per litre on 95 octane fuel and super diesel, which are used on the luxury vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think they have a plan. And that is what is very scary, because this country can't afford to fall again. It's, it's like a patient who's fallen, had a hip replacement or something like that, and
I think the situation is fragile.
It's fragile. You're just recovering, and you fall again. The recovery there is going to be very, very tough.
All right. I thought we should talk about the new laws which were introduced between 2022 to 2024 during President Ranil Wickremesinghe's tenure. This is indeed a step towards strengthening the rule of law and ensuring greater transparency and
That's
accountability. Could you take us through the most significant development in terms of new laws being introduced?
I'll just run through about 3-4
Sure.
of them. There was the public finance management.
Mm-hmm.
That was to ensure that the finances of the people were managed in a responsible and transparent way. It's not just about bringing in the law, but it's about creating the environment for the law to be really implemented.
Right.
Then you have the public debt management law, which is exactly what debt sustainability, and then we had the law, the Central Bank Act, which made the central bank independent of politicians and money printing, and gave them all the strength to run a professional central bank. Let's take another. We had the Parliamentary Budget Office. Parliament has the authority over public finances. But we also brought in the a stronger anti-corruption law.
I think that's
That
very
was
important.
very, very high standard, not second to anything, not even second probably to the Singapore laws or the Hong Kong laws. And we created or strengthened the commission. We provided them the staff they required, which required a lot of professional technical staff outside of the government service. We provided the training. All of this required funding, so that was all provided for, and they are now getting ready to act very independently and strongly. But that was not just that, it doesn't stand alone by itself. It was the corruption was very high on anti-corruption was very high on our agenda. We were following up with the Proceeds of Crimes bill. It is on the order paper. It was due to come in immediately after the presidential election, but unfortunately Parliament has got dissolved. It's one of the things we wanted to bring in this year and complete, because that will strengthen the law, the portfolio of laws that you require to tackle corruption.
I think that's a really important step, because there was a key demand, especially during the Aragale and even afterwards, to fight corruption. So would you say that this bill really helps anyone who comes into power, even in the future, to would it create an environment which would encourage more justice?
Of course it will. And what's special about it is that it also, even the private sector has to be accountable.
Right.
Not just the government servants and the politicians, the government side of things, but even the private sector has to be accountable. So it covers the whole spectrum, and gives autonomy to the commission. It's a good law, and it's getting backed up by the Proceeds of Crimes and then a few others that are down the road.
Sure.
This whole package came in as a part of a program we undertook again with IMF. It just came about in a discussion we were having. And they said, we were talking about how our governance structures are a little weak over the years. And they said, look, they were just coming up with this thing on doing governance diagnostics in countries, and whether we would be like to be the first to go. So we said, yes, we would. And they came and did a thorough study through the government systems, and then they came up with a comprehensive report. We were not 100% agreeable on everything, but we didn't go into a debate. We said we'll accept it. And then we sat with them and worked out 15 of the key areas we wanted to prioritize. And those 15 areas are what we're working on, and about 8 of them tackle corruption.
Right.
Very strongly. And I don't think any government has taken on an anti-corruption program as much as the last government in a short span of 2 years.
That's indeed commendable, because
One more law.
Yes.
The Women's Empowerment Act, which passed Parliament. We wanted to bring in another one, but that one I think got delayed a little. The Women's Empowerment Law is, I just wanted to tell you on that. It's going to allow us to enact a national policy on gender parity and women's empowerment. It also advocates for a national commission on women. That will be equipped to safeguard women's rights and pursue justice for any violations. So this, I think, is a very special law, which the president was very passionate about. He wanted to back it up with another one, another law on the same lines, which got held up, but that too is in the pipeline. It's up to the new government and the new parliament to take these on. There were so many other progressive laws which will help us reform our fiscal, monetary, as well as governance and the entire social segment of things. So it was very comprehensive.
Indeed.
We have passed 42 bills by the time we ended our tenure. And there were about 50 that were also, in addition, another 50 that were amended. if I'm correct. So
All
that's a
right.
significant number.
Indeed, indeed, because I think strengthening laws would obviously ensure greater accountability as well. So moving on to my next question, what are your views on all these parties who who talk about abolishing the executive presidency? Is it necessary for the betterment of Sri Lanka, or is it not going to make a significant difference in
I
terms
think
of what's best for Sri Lanka?
I think that's up to the people of Sri Lanka to decide. I personally believe the executive presidency is something that is required.
Right.
You you need the executive and the legislature to run this country, and that balance is
Right.
required. Some of the draconian parts of the executive presidency were amended previously. I think about the last parliament, if I remember right, we amended that, and there was a time when we also had a view that an executive prime minister responsible to parliament would also be a good option. So these need to be debated. And I
Right.
think the new parliament should debate this.
Okay.
And I do hope the new parliament will be a balanced parliament. And that's up to the people of Sri Lanka. Because if you have a majority, imbalance in parliament and a majority on any one side, that is not good for the way you look at things from the point of view of the people.
People voted for the NPP because they possibly believe that this would bring about a system change. How do you see this? Do you
So
believe that the current system should be changed, and if so, can those changes be implemented by the NPP?
Okay, so the way I look at it, I think the youth wanted a change. The people also wanted a change in general, and that was very obvious during the Aragale. President Wickremesinghe took on the economic reforms. He also took on governance reforms, and we went through a significant process like we
Right.
discussed. And I think the change that was required has come, and it is a journey that we have to. There was about another 2-3 years
Sure.
to complete it, but the people didn't realize that the change they really need is there. So they are still living in anger at what happened in 2022, and we didn't communicate what we were doing. We said we passed the public debt management law, we passed the public finance management, we passed the Central Bank Act, we've done this, we've done that, but we never went to the extent of explaining to the people what these things would do in terms
Right.
of revolutionizing this country into an economic, powerhouse, which is what we have to do for the people. And along with that, you have to provide for the freedom that the people require. They have to be free. Disciplines for sure, very necessary. Law-abiding, all very necessary. But you have to have that freedom to lead your life the way you like to lead it.
All right.
Different people will have different ideas of what freedom is.
Sure. So when you look back on the 2 years where you worked closely with the former president, at a time where, like you said as well, not many wanted to accept the challenge, what was the biggest challenge you had?
We were working with a group of, the president had only one member of parliament from his party.
Yes.
We were working with a group of parliamentarians and ministers that we had since 1952 or 53 been screaming at each other on different stages. They were on one side, we were on another side, and we would scream at each other on the public stage, in parliament, and at loggerheads. But we had to come together to revive the country. And we actually worked very well together. But then the president had a party, I had a party, the UNP. And there was the SLPP as a party who we were working. So these two parties didn't do any politics during that time. The SLPP didn't do politics because they didn't know how to, whether it was, they had had a bad experience with the constituency. So they didn't know the time was right to go back to the constituency. The UNP didn't do any politics because they thought, they are sidelined because the president is now with this group working through matters. But the crux of the matter was that we didn't do any politics. We were rebuilding the country and concentrating very hard on that. That played a huge role, that had a huge effect on the election result. The fact that whilst we were doing this, the others were out there quietly chipping away at takes us on at the next election.
But I think it's got to come to a point where when your country is faced with a severe crisis and people are faced with so many economic hardships, that you leave your politics at the door and you think of what's best for people.
There was no time for anything else. That's all we worked very long days.
Right.
And it was a very rough run, but very happy that we were able to do this for the country, although the country doesn't still think we did something good. This country would have been in tatters. People would have really been suffering if we had not done that recovery. But I do hope the new president can hold it together. Not just hold it together, but we have a growth trajectory that we had to follow, because we had to give our people a good living standard. We had to increase their incomes, a good living. We have to develop the country. And on top of that, we had to start repaying our loans in 5 years. It's not a matter to be experimenting with.
Sure.
You have to go on a proven path.
And you got to know what you're doing.
You have to know what you're doing. You have to. I think experience is key in this, which our new president seems to lack.
All right. So I think we've covered pretty much a lot on current affairs, and I think it would be interesting to have some non-political questions.
Sure. Yeah.
So I'm sure you're pretty busy with the election campaign these days, as are all politicians and leaders at this time. How do you usually unwind?
How do I usually unwind?
Yes.
I haven't unwinded in 2 years, but otherwise, I love going to the beach, to the national parks. But there's also one other place. My family comes from Denyai. My father comes from Denyai, so we have properties there, and I love going back there and
all right.
being with the people. I nursed that constituency for a while, and going to the property. We have a beautiful temple on that property that my parents built, and the next generation and the generation after us, spend a lot of time nurturing that temple and the people in the estate and the people in Denyai. So that also takes time. That is very unwinding.
Is it true that you're media shy?
I'm not media shy, but I don't generally go looking for the media.
But I think being in the field you are in, media probably comes looking for you.
That is where we went wrong as a government also. We didn't explain to the people what we were doing. And we suffered as a result of that. And I worry that the country will suffer as a result of that. I don't want that to happen.
Not being able to get the message across.
And being there to continue the program.
Right.
Because we worked the program, we had a finger on it, and we could have taken it to the next stage.
Did you always aspire to be a politician or to get into politics?
No. I didn't aspire to be a politician. I wanted to be a good, a corporate sector person. I actually started in a bank. I started in a local company called Central Finance Company as an investment analyst. Then I was helping to set up a trust fund for one of the first unit trusts. And after that, I joined HSBC, worked here I was seconded to Vancouver, BC for 9 months. Did a few short stints in London, Singapore, and Hong Kong. They were mainly training stints, but on-the-job training stints.
So this was not something this was not your ambition when you were a kid.
No. Actually, I was in the bank when the Asian financial crisis took place in 1997.
Right.
It was an amazing experience, and then seeing it really happen here in 20 odd years later was again frightening.
What is the biggest misconception about you?
About me?
Yes.
I think because when I start doing something now, when we were in government, I was working so hard that it took all my time, and I didn't have time for friends, family, politics, or anything. So people thought I was very difficult to approach. It was not by choice. I like being around people quite a bit, and I enjoy election time. I enjoy, even when I was in Mathura district, I was only a minister and I didn't have much of a schedule. So I used to spend a lot of time with the people, and that's very, very rewarding. And I lost that in the last 2 years.
All right.
But I think I'll recover it. You got to strike a balance. But the crisis years, you just couldn't work out that balance.
So work-life balance.
Yeah.
And finally, what matters the most to you in life?
I think what matters the most to me in life is that the country does well and the people do well. We have so much potential in this country. We see it in front of our eyes when we go into the Western world, and you see the other countries who have come up, and they have their systems run well. The people know what to expect. They know there is transparency, that their government will look after them. They work with the governments then, and that's what we need to achieve, because we have so much more than what those countries have, and we can really give it to the people of Sri Lanka. And you need the youth to understand that. They don't still understand what this means. They want something, they want the change, but they don't know what that change they want is. Going back to what you were talking about earlier. So when we were bringing the change, they didn't understand it, and we also didn't spend the time explaining it to them. This country can really do well. The opportunity is tremendous.
All right. I would love to chat more, but given the time restrictions, thank you very much for having this conversation with me.
Thank you.
So it was wonderful having a conversation with Mr. Sagala Rathnayaka. He will be contesting from the New Democratic Front this time. So you watch this conversation, and if you decide to vote for Mr. Sagala Rathnayaka, it's number 19 from the Colombo District New Democratic Front, which is the symbol of the gas cylinder. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. Stay safe and take care.